story, and to see you go through this journey, it's been nice. So let's kind of get started here with how you got started in aviation. I think that's probably the first question that we ask each other when we get in the cockpit and you're flying with someone for the first time. Did you commute? Sure, yes, no. And what'd you do before this? Is kind of like one of the top three questions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start out with that. What sparked this journey for you? How old were you, and what happened?
Well, the first time I was ever in a small airplane would have been probably when I was maybe 8 to 10 years old up in Alaska. Was fortunate enough to go on a 172 with a pilot who was, we flew around some glaciers and landed on a glacier, and it was super cool. And the thing that pointed out in my mind was the fact that this guy was flying, and he just, he had his arm on the side of the window. He was just so relaxed. And here I am thinking, this is the most death-defying thing I've ever done. And he's just, it's like he's driving down the side of the road. And I just thought to myself, I'll never be that composed or cool to be able to do something like that. So that really was just the first time in a small airplane. And I thought it was so cool. And then kind of growing up, with kind of Boy Scouts, Civil Air Patrol, it just kind of just brought me towards aviation. And always, like a lot of us, the story is looking towards the sky and thinking that's something I'd really like to do. And then learning about aviation, the fact schedules and kind of flexibility and the ability to travel and those kind of things, it just really kind of drew me into wanting to fly. Did I know the whole process and how hard it was going to be, the marathon of training and, the continuation of training your entire life? I had no idea about any of that. I just knew, like everybody, just want to put my hands on the controls and get in the sky.
Yeah. So you mentioned Civil Air Patrol and Boy Scouts. Were those some avenues that got you started?
Yeah, Civil Air Patrol, definitely. Boy Scouts, not as much, just the kind of growing up, wanting to learn new things, get new skills and all that kind of stuff. And I was in Boy Scouts first and did all that. And then in about the middle of high school, got involved with Civil Air Patrol because I heard, I was very interested in the Air Force, and Civil Air Patrol was kind of another thing to boost my resume. And they have a great program for youth to get involved with not only kind of military aspects of learning aviation or learning Air Force things, but also getting into aviation. So I did a lot of their flight encampments, flying gliders in central Illinois and small airplanes. And that's kind of what really jump-started my flight training was Civil Air Patrol.
Yeah. And so walk me through that process. I mean, do you just go to your local airport and figure out where the nearest Civil Air Patrol office is as a young man and walk in and say, hey, I want to find out more about it? Or did you have to go online? How did you work through that?
So it's very similar avenues as Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts is kind of well known. Civil Air Patrol isn't really a mainstay. It's not something that you hear every day. But they have online, I would assume it's civilairpatrol.gov or civilairpatrol.com, and you can find a local chapter or a squadron. They use all the military terms. So you'd find a local squadron, and there's sometimes co-located with airports, a lot of times not as well. I went to a squadron that was in Forest Park, Illinois, and who the commander of that unit was actually a ramp coordinator for Legacy Airlines, and he'd been doing that for the past 20 or 30 years, I think. So it kind of all molded into where it was located near me, but not at an airport. We actually met at Army depot, one of the auxiliary depots where they keep a lot of trucks and things like that.
Oh, cool.
So you have your meetings, you join, you wear a uniform, just kind of like you would in the Boy Scouts. But there's encampments or summer camps where you go to like Great Lakes Naval Training Station, which is in northern Illinois or southern Wisconsin. And you just learn about aspects. You take tests, you get, promoted just like you would kind of in the Boy Scouts with, Eagle Scout, things like that. What really interested me in aviation and Civil Air Patrol was how they were kind of commingled. And so I would get involved with flying airplanes through Civil Air Patrol.
Yeah. And did you actually get to fly airplanes when you're in those first couple years of getting into this?
Yeah, so Civil Air Patrol, it's not the first thing you do. It's kind of like the EAA, they do the Young Eagles where they give kids rides for free, things like that. But Civil Air Patrol, I kind of took it on like just like I did Boy Scouts. It's, well, you want to advance through the ranks, you want to learn about the Air Force, and you provide service to your community and to the aviation community. After I was involved for maybe a year and a half, I was able to get involved with one of their flight instructors that out of Palwaukee Airport, or now called Chicago Executive Airport on the north side of Chicago. I was able to kind of get scheduled with him and started doing lessons, and actually completed my first solo through the Civil Air Patrol in one of their aircraft. So I'd say about a year after I was involved with Civil Air Patrol did I start flying with them.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, because I know a lot of people go, I go and right away I get to be in an airplane. It takes a little bit of time. And thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, it's an obligation. Yeah, it's an obligation where, I mean, it's one of the aspects of Civil Air Patrol. You don't just show up and go fly. There's a lot of other things that you do.
Yeah. And so you did this, was it a couple years into high school when you kind of started getting into this?
Yeah, it was about, I think, just ending sophomore year, maybe starting junior year, where I got involved. And I think by the time I was done with high school, I probably had 35 hours of flight time.
Yeah.
So yeah, a considerable amount of flying. And it really gave me a leg up when I went to college to kind of have a good working background. You know, I had a solo flight and all this kind of stuff. A lot of guys show up to college with, their license, but I figured I could do something. And that was at least get started and get past my solo.
I see. And you decided to go to a college over in Florida, which was the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University over in Dayton, Florida. How was that process? Did you just decide, hey, I'm going to stick with aviation and this is a really good school, it's my best bet? Or was there some other story back there?
So as I got interested in aviation, I kind of knew it's not necessarily that I knew I wanted to fly. It's just I didn't really 100% know what else I would do. So flying kind of fit the bill. It's like, well, yeah, I could go into business. I could go into God knows what else. But flying is something I knew I wanted to do. And I had learned all these aspects about, the lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. I was like, you know what? I was lucky enough to say, that's what I want to do. I kind of came to grips and said, this is what I want to put my energy towards. As far as college went, I was interested in the Air Force Academy and Embry-Riddle. And that's kind of why I got involved with Civil Air Patrol too, because, hey, if I want to go to the Air Force Academy, Civil Air Patrol is a really good start to kind of learn the Air Force and that kind of stuff. So I applied to the Air Force Academy, also Embry-Riddle. I ended up getting physically disqualified from the Air Force Academy because I had some hearing loss in my right ear at the time. And so I was conditionally accepted, had my senator's nomination, things like that, but didn't pass the medical. And so fortunately, Embry-Riddle accepted me. And so I hate to call Embry-Riddle my second choice, but it was. But I'm so glad that it worked out in that direction.
Yeah.
And there was the Daytona campus in Florida, and then the Prescott, Arizona campus, and beach, spring break, dry desert.
No contest.
Yeah. It was pretty easy decision to head down there.
Good choice.
So, yeah, I enjoyed my time down there, and it was it's a fantastic university. I give full support to the school. It is expensive, and the costs of flight training have just ballooned, beyond imagination over the past decade. But the pedigree of that, without sounding conceited, the pedigree of that diploma, it means something. There's so many pilots that come out of that university. I try and be I'm just another pilot. You can get your pilot's license anywhere, but I'm very glad that I went there.